managers multiple chances to assess the weather at the splashdown zones and make sure everything is lining up before Dragon departs. Again, we heard not that long ago that the weather continues to look good at the splashdown zones for a splashdown tomorrow, July 15th, to continue on our way to undock the Dragon Grace spacecraft. And there on your screen, you're seeing a live look from the International Space Station, the camera pointing towards the hatch of the Dragon spacecraft, and there going into Dragon is Axiom Mission 4 pilot Shubhanshu Shukla. In the next 15 minutes or so, we should see all 4 crew members make their way inside the Dragon spacecraft and get situated in their seats. And there on your screen now, you can see Axiom Mission 4 mission specialist Slawosz Uznanski-Wisniewski. Before moving into the keep-out sphere, spacecraft have to be configured where they would not cross the imaginary boundary for at least 4 orbits, even if the spacecraft lost all maneuvering. After Dragon exits the keep-out sphere, about 13 minutes later, Dragon will then exit the approach ellipsoid. And the approach ellipsoid is another imaginary shape similar to the keep-out sphere, but this time it's a 3-dimensional ellipsoid measuring 4 kilometers by 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers. Crew members Peggy Whitson, Shubhanshu Shukla, Slawosz Uznanski-Wisniewski, and Tibor Kapu are now suited up and standing by for undocking to begin their journey back home to Earth. So again, we'll continue to stand by for that final go, no-go poll in just a couple of minutes, but for now, everything continuing to look good for today's undocking and departure of Axiom Mission 4. The review is in between Commander Peggy Whitson and pilot Shubhanshu Shukla. Again, the crew got suited up a couple of hours ago during those hatch close operations. They will remain in their suits through the undocking and departure activities today. Once they exit the approach ellipsoid, which is one of the invisible boundaries around the International Space Station that governs visiting vehicles, the crew will begin to take off those suits and get comfortable for their 22.5-hour journey home. They will then put those suits back on just ahead of the deorbit and entry phase of their flight tomorrow morning. Again, that second departure burn in a series of 4 is now underway, and it'll last about 20 seconds.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop, depart burn 1 complete and nominal. You are go to doff suits per procedure 4.012.
Nominal departure and 4012 for Dragon.
And we just had confirmation there that that second departure burn, known as Depart Burn 1, has completed, and it was executed as expected. The crew is now going to start doffing or removing their spacesuits and getting settled in for their 22.5-hour journey back to Earth, again with that splashdown targeted for tomorrow morning, July 15th, off the coast of California. And as a reminder, just like during its approach to the International Space Station, Dragon's departure and deorbit is designed to be fully autonomous, requiring no action from the crew on board. However, unlike Dragon's arrival, there are no hold points during the departure sequence, therefore it takes a lot less time to leave the vicinity of the space station than to arrive. So we just had confirmation of that second departure burn being completed, and that is the second in a series of 4. However, it's the only the only one that was left within the vicinity of the space station. The next departure burn will take place about 45 minutes from now after Dragon is well on its way back to Earth and outside of the approach ellipsoid. Dragon is now about 195 meters away from the International Space Station and should be crossing the keep-out sphere momentarily. And we just heard confirmation that Dragon has exited the keep-out sphere. Again, the keep-out sphere is an invisible 200-meter line centered on the space station. It's one of several safety zones set up to govern spacecraft arriving and departing from the International Space Station. While spacecraft are inside the keep-out sphere, they have to be configured where they would not cross into the imaginary boundary for at least 4 orbits, even if the spacecraft lost all maneuvering. The next major milestone for Dragon's departure will be exiting the approach ellipsoid. This is planned to take place about 13 minutes from now.
Dragon, station Houston on the big loop. Dragon has exited the keep-out sphere.
Dragon copies.
Station copies.
Station looks beautiful.